This morning, I had something about Christ come together in my head that resolved a dilemma that I had for like 30 years. And I pray it will be as exciting for you as it was for me, and as edifying as as I can make it, and increase your love of the person of Christ beyond, well, he gets the Father off my back so I don't go to hell. The person of Christ is far more lovely to me and desirable to me to know than I ever understood. And I was raised in the church. So let me set it up for us, because it's going to help us understand all the confusion in our society today over what it means to be a man and a woman, and homosexuality versus heterosexuality versus pansexuality. It all just came together, and I hope it does for you. So let me set up what I'm going to talk about, because it's in 1 Corinthians chapter 4. Paul talks about it, and I never saw it. The issue in philosophy was known as the subject-object dilemma. And I read about it back when I was trying to teach in college, 30 years ago, and it just went over my head. But here's what's happened. In our culture today, they've said, well, we really can't know God. And that's true. The immensity, the infinity, the eternality of God is such that as creatures, we can't know him unless he would reveal himself. And even if he revealed himself, we couldn't know him comprehensively, right? We might could apprehend things that he reveals, but to know the infinite comprehensively, well, that's impossible. So ultimately, we gave up on knowing God altogether and said the only thing we can really know for sure is what we can measure and test, empirical data. So this is where the transgender homosexuality issue comes into play. The world would tell us that the only thing I can know about a person in front of me is the empirical data, that they have certain anatomical bodies and reproductive systems. That's all I can really know. I can't know the person beyond that. So that person who is the object of my consideration, as I'm sitting here as a person, a subject, I'd have to say, well, you have to tell me who you are, because otherwise I can't go beyond your body parts, okay? And so that's why we get Justice Jackson and the Michigan Department of Education saying, well, there are lots of views on gender, and Jackson saying, well, I can't tell you what a woman is. Because she recognizes, given the way the world thinks today, I can't know who you are until you tell me. And here's what's so beautiful. The problem is that the subject, the person I'm looking at, can't get outside of themselves to even know who they are. On one of the three inscriptions on the temple at Delphi was "Know thyself." Well, how can I even know myself if I can't get outside of myself to get an objective look and say, that's ugly, or whoa, that's good. Okay. So the person who's telling me that they're a man or a woman, despite what their body says, well, they can't get outside of themselves to know anything about themselves. They would need to have an objective external point of reference, and that's exactly what Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians chapter 4. He says, we're required to be stewards. But in verse 3, he says, but with me, is this issue of stewardship, it is a very small thing that I should be judged of you, or of man's judgment. Yea, I judge not my own self, for I know nothing by myself. Yet I'm not hereby justified, but he that judgeth me is the Lord. And I'm always understood, yeah, sure, God has to judge you because he's God and you're not. But what Paul is saying is I don't have an objective point of reference outside of myself by which I could judge myself. And I would always be looking at myself and saying, yeah, I'm a great guy. I'm a faithful Jew. I'm traveling multiple days to get to Damascus to bring back those Christian heretics and put them to death. I mean, I was proud to be standing there holding the coats of those that were stoning Stephen. And what he's saying is, in Jesus Christ, we have the knowledge of the glory of God by which we can now understand who we are, because in Christ there is both man, the subjective person that I am, a human being, and God, the external reference point that man needs to know what it means to be human. And so there's my breakthrough this morning. That only as we proclaim who Christ is and his nature and his persons and what he came to do, are we ever going to solve this dilemma of, well, what is a woman? And I hope that helps you.